Hey, welcome to the Easy Computer Fixes channel, and today we're going to talk about a very common problem, connectivity problems with your internet connection in your router. Now there are probably a million different things that can go wrong with your router, with your internet connection, with your modem, but you got to understand the basics of everything in order to actually be able to troubleshoot yourself. First things first, I would say that probably 80% of internet connections problems that I encounter when I go to my clients are related to the router and the modem. And if you just know how to deal with that, I would say 80 to 90% of all problems with the internet is really just because your router or modem is going berserk and just needs to be restarted. So first of all, you got no internet, you've got problems with your internet, or it's started getting intermittent and it's there and it's not there and it depends on you don't know what the weather outside. Well, first thing you should do is actually your connection will have usually two machines plugged in. Your ISP or Internet Service Provider modem, which is a little box that your internet service provider gave you or made you buy, and it has little lights on it. That's the modem, which is the cable. If you're on cable, it's going to be a cable modem. If you're on DSL, that's by the phone. You've got a DSL modem. Whatever you have, you've got this little black or gray or whatever box with little lights on it, and that's your ISP's modem. The second thing you probably have, because a lot of people out there now have laptops, is a router. Check for that little box with lights that has antennas on it, but be careful, some boxes don't have antennas, like some Linksys, for example, actually don't have antennas. But it's good to know that you've got these two devices. They're usually plugged together. It means that a cable from your modem is going to the router. If you've got problems with your internet connection, then what you should do is actually power down your router and your modem. So if they're on a power bar, shut down the power bar switch for at least a minute or two. Give it time to actually really get all the power out of the different capacitors inside the machines. If you don't have a power bar, then just unplug the modem, unplug the router, wait a minute or two, plug them back in, and wait at least another 2 or 3 minutes, because your modem needs to go back and connect to the internet connection. Your router needs to talk to that modem and say, well, okay, what's happening and where's the internet? And that, if you do it in a good order, sometimes you need to shut down the modem and restart the modem first and the router first. Depending on your installation, if you plugged in the power to the modem first and the router second and it still doesn't work, why not try the reverse? Just plug the router first and the modem second, and probably 90% of the time your internet is going to be back just by doing that. And if you had intermittent connections, then maybe it's going to become more stable and get a better understanding here. Another thing that happens quite often in connectivity problems is your wires. Make sure that everything's plugged in well. I've seen a lot of problems that are caused by the simple fact that someone wanted to just clean out the computer area. They used a broom, or they went there and cleaned everything, and they wanted to dust the area, for example. And what happened is that without really seeing anything, they just unplug the cable, or they might have just moved the cables and one is just not plugged in snugly in the little ports there. So make sure that everything that you've got on your cable modem and or your DSL modem and your router is plugged in well, do that little trick that I told you. First of all, unplug the power, wait a minute or two, and plug it back in and see if it works. I would say just that first troubleshooting tip is 80 to 90% of all internet problems. That I can tell you, and I tell you by experience. But maybe you're in that little 10 or 20% that is something else, and that's possible. The second thing that you might actually want to check is, in case of Wi-Fi problems, is laptops have this on-off switch. It's either a switch like you see here in the front, or it could be a function on your keyboard. If you have an older laptop, there's a good chance that on the side of your computer you'll have that little switch that you can put on or off with a little light that's orange, blue, or whatever, green. That little switch turns off or on the Wi-Fi in your laptop. That's very important to check. That is cause of probably the second cause of Wi-Fi or connectivity problems is because the Wi-Fi was shut off by accident. One of the biggest problems is a lot of the switches were on the front, and if you put your laptop on your lap and you just move your laptop around, you might actually accidentally switch it off. That's another thing to check for. If you have a more recent laptop, they've actually taken off most of the time these little switches, and now it's a function in the computer. So for example, look on your keyboard. Do you see at the top row or somewhere on your keyboard a little antenna with kind of little waves? So it looks like really a radiating antenna, a small little pictogram on the keys. Check for that, and often you have to use it with the function key, the FN key you have on the bottom left of your keyboard. So check for that. A lot of people actually accidentally turn it off while they're typing. So that's another thing to check. Lots of laptops have what we call airplane mode. Make sure your computer didn't go into airplane mode. That's also a function of a lot of computers, and that turns off the Wi-Fi. So check for that on your keyboard. You've got these functions that you can use. Then there's more of the connectivity problems that are related to the hardware, and that's more difficult to troubleshoot. If you're a little more advanced and you're trying to figure it out, why not check out your router? Your router has an address. For example, mine here is 192.168.1.1, and this is my internal router's firmware. You can actually click there and click the administration, enter the passwords that you've assigned for your router, and or maybe that your tech guy did. There you've got something called firmware upgrade. Here I've got firmware upgrade that says here. So here it says you can upgrade. Now if you have a router, you will probably have updates available. Some routers update themselves without without having anything to do. You can just leave it there and it's going to update. But most of the routers, you will need to have your participation to actually update. So take the router's company or name and Google it. So for example, I've got a TP-Link router here, which is a 941ND. So what I would do is just type firmware TP-Link, and I'll give you an example here. I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to type TP-Link 941ND firmware. And hopefully you'll get there. And you see here, welcome TP-Link TL941ND. And there you have firmware information and upgrades available for your router. So what you'll do is go here and check for downloads, especially. So whatever company you have, you'll have to check for a firmware update. So if you got a Cisco or a D-Link or a Linksys, either Google it or go to the website, the company's website, and there you will have updates of firmware probably available. That's important. Firmware in routers are like little programs, and they actually control your router a lot. And if there's bugs in this firmware, it can cause connectivity problems of all sorts. So that's one thing you can check for. If you are uneasy or you don't feel that you have the knowledge to actually update a firmware from a router, then why not call a tech guy, and you better have it done by a professional than actually having mess up everything. But if you feel confident, it's not that difficult to do actually. All you have to do is just download the firmware on your desktop, for example, and inside your router, when you click the firmware upgrade, then you can click that little update button, and there you'll be asked, okay, where do you want to, please select a file to update, and it's going to open that little window file. So what you can actually click and choose on your computer the file. Make sure you have the good file for your router with the model and everything. Usually they'll ask you for the router model number, but also for its hardware version number, and very often they will also have the firmware version number. So it can get a little complicated here. So that's something to check for. And you've done all of those steps. Another little thing that I can tell you to try for is check for your device's driver or your Wi-Fi network card driver in Windows. That's another cause of problems. Sometimes the driver is too old or is buggy, and they've actually made updates. So what do? Go into your control panel, go into System, and there go into Device Manager, and you will actually have the Device Manager. Well, you just have to go into the section that's called Network Adapters. Just click that little arrow, check your network adapters, and there you'll have your wireless LAN drivers. You can click on that. You can click driver, you can click update driver, and you can search for it automatically online. It's going to tell you if there's an update or not of your Wi-Fi driver. Here it says determine the driver software is up to date on mine. Another place where you might want to go for updating the driver, because it doesn't mean because you just click that and it's really updated, is on your manufacturer's website. So if you have a Toshiba, just go to toshiba.com. If you have an HP computer, hp.com. Dell, dell.com. A Sony Vaio, sony.com. And search for your laptop model number, and there you'll have downloads available with the different drivers of your machine, and make sure they are up to date, and make sure especially that your Ethernet card, Wi-Fi card is up to date also. So these are all little tips and tricks that you can check for. Of course, there are other things that are out of your control that can happen with a computer software. For example, one of the things that can happen about connectivity problems is that maybe your modem has a problem or an issue with your internet service provider, and that basically you'll have to call your ISP and tell them, well, I got connectivity problems. Do you see something on your end? And quite often they can see if your modem disconnects very often, or it has a signal problem. They will see it from a distance. They can see all of that, but they cannot see your computer. So they're really troubleshooting on their network up to the modem actually. So hopefully all of that and all those little tips helped you understand. and maybe they helped you also fix a problem that you might have had with your computer, your router, and your internet connection of all sorts. If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to our channel. You'll be informed when new videos are online. If you have any comments or questions on what you've seen, let us know. Maybe you have a feature, maybe you have a Fixit video you'd like to see and understand how it works. Let us know. We'll try to put that video online, and hopefully you will come back to the Easy Computer Fixes channel. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.